So hello, everybody. It's it's the third episode of, or installment. I hate to call it an episode. I don't know. It's the third installment of Ron Ruth Presents here on DJNTV. I'm so happy you joined me. This is actually a bonus installment because we still have another. I still get to do this again at the end of the month on the last Tuesday of the month. So I'm pretty happy about that as well. So glad you're here. You know how this works. If you have questions at any point during the conversation tonight, just go ahead and post them in the chat, and we're going to do our very best to try to answer those questions for you. But right now, what I want to do is I'm thrilled to be introducing you to one of my best friends, a friend I've known for a number of years. And we were talking before we went live tonight, and I was learning a little bit more. I was asking information for her introduction. I had no idea how long this lady has been involved in the wedding and event industry. So let me tell you, this is my friend. Her name is Britney Beach. She has been in the wedding and event, Britney Beach-Jones. I should know that. I did her wedding.
Yes.
So yes, she's married now. So Britney Beach-Jones, she's been in the wedding and event industry for 12 years. But more importantly, recently, like last December, she took over ownership and publishing of a magazine from Kansas City. It's called EA Bride, which is, it's probably the most beautiful wedding magazine in our market in Kansas City. And I'm going to let her tell you more about this here in just a little while. But first, hi, Britney.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. Good. Doing great.
Good. I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah. So first off, thank you for being here. This is really nice of you to give of your time. Britney also has giving up time from her 2-year daughter. She's got a beautiful 2-year-old daughter named Cora. So, Britney, tell the audience here a little bit about yourself. How 12 years in the wedding and event industry, and I'm just touching the surface. Talk about that. What brought you into this industry, and then all of the things that you've done along the way. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, first of all, hello, and thank you, Ron, for having me.
You're welcome.
Just want to share a little bit of the backstory, being that when I was in college, I actually started doing events with St. Jude's Hospital.
Oh, wow.
So my first dabble in it was someone like, hey, just volunteer and rally up this evening of fun and donations, and it was a cause you could not help but to commit yourself to. So I did, and that's where I started, was actually in kind of nonprofit event organization. So upon doing that, I then dropped out of pre-med and moved on to business management. And so I got my degree from Missouri State University in entertainment management with an emphasis in events.
Wow.
So yeah, they have a degree for it.
Yeah, I was just, you can go to college to learn how to do this. That's awesome.
You don't have to party extra to get a degree. you have to actually go to class.
I never thought about that, but yes. Yeah. You actually have to throw your own parties as experience.
Yeah. So I graduated, and upon that, I went to learn as fast as I could in one of the markets that's extremely event driven, and I moved to Miami and worked for a DMC down there that did mainly corporate events. So when I started, it was first nonprofit, then went to corporate, and I started my career in corporate events. And then upon completion with that, I just kind of missed the emotional element that I kind of experienced within the nonprofit piece. So weddings are full of emotions, as everyone knows. So I came back to Missouri and started planning weddings. And that's kind of my dive into weddings, I would say, my first taste and experiences of weddings. And since then, I've been in it.
So how long have you been involved in the wedding specific industry then?
So 9 years.
9 years.
Yes.
And I know part of that time you were a wedding planner, correct?
Yes.
Actually, most of the time
yes.
you were a wedding planner. And then you also have been managing a venue for at least 8 years.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, and now you've decided to move into another field. You were a writer for EA Bride for a number of years before. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Okay. So planning, everything started with planning, and then it just kind of took the steps, so it didn't feel unnatural to me to do the weddings. I just took a few when I first started, and I just paid attention to the clients thoroughly, and took care of the emotions and the needs and everything they needed. And in planning, it's wonderful because you get so many referrals. So if you're a part of the, I think photographers and planners have the unique ability to be on the emotional ride as it's happening throughout the day, from the first coffee until the last, the last gift leaves the venue. And so whenever you're so ingrained with the emotions as they rise, then, when they turn around and their friend gets engaged, you're one of the first people they share with, so that was an amazing experience. I loved every minute of it. I kind of joke with some of my friends that I'm like an emotional feed. And so it's like, I need the emotions that weddings feed me, because I like being a part of people. I mean, who doesn't like being a part of people's happiest days? I mean, it's an amazing opportunity to be there and to serve them. So it started there. From then, after seeing tons of venues and planning, then a venue seemed like a natural progression for my career. I didn't want to go head over heels. I didn't dabble in the catering. I just kind of kept it simple and just had a venue. Let's just feed a lot of people, or be able to seat a lot of people and let some other people feed them. But it was a natural progression. And from my expertise, and then from doing the planning and the venue side, I just teamed up with EA Bride at that point and said, hey, what if I do a what's hot, what's not column? It can go in every issue, and then I can give my expertise back to brides that are currently planning their day in a different way that I hadn't been able to do before. So as I wrote that article, then I got asked to write a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then now I was the editor, and now I've bought the whole thing. So yeah. It just naturally, it kind of just happened like that. It wasn't something.
That's an incredible journey. I mean, what just out of curiosity, what is the one thing you love most about the wedding industry, or maybe a couple things? Do you have like one or two things that you really can go, I get so excited when that happens?
Well, I'm thankful that trends change and it keeps the industry alive. So I feel like it's always moving. It's always something's progressing, something's new and available to the brides. And it's great to be a part of that. And in the magazine, I have the ability to lead the city in designs and information and in the trends, and that brides can implement here, because where we're at, we may not always see the trends first. But if I see them first on the coast or in Europe, then it's my job to bring them here.
I see.
So it's kind of like a service that I have to provide to brides to help lead them as well.
That's awesome.
They see stuff online. So if I'm not doing it here, they're going to see it on Pinterest or somewhere else. Yeah.
Pinterest is evil, you know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we claim we're Pinterest in print.
That's okay. So tonight, our primary focus is to talk about how to capture or catch a bride's eye, her heart, and her business. So we want to talk a little bit about trends. We'll talk about trends. We want to talk about how to design an ad that's going to capture a bride's eye. Not only that, advertising today also, it's just like everything else with customer experience, it's all about emotion. It's touching on emotion. It's not just a matter of what's visually appealing, but it's also something that's going to make a bride go, oh, or something to that effect.
Yes.
Just like the way I did that.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was very cute.
So yeah, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about trends. What do you think are the hottest trends? Maybe like 3 or 4. What do you think are going to be the hottest trends for the rest of 2008 into 2019?
Well, one of the first trends, and kind of you're going to laugh, it's the transition to all things moody. So moody. So hold with me here. So everything, it's a real thing, has been light and airy and feminine. And you look at the photography and you just see so much light inside of it.
Right.
But now we see the trend towards the jewel tones and the darker flowers and the moodier photography using more artistic lighting. There's great examples out there.
We're moving. What you're saying, I think, well, part of it colors, but when you talk about photography, we are finally moving beyond this whole thing of where we have to have the photojournalist come in and do all the picture taking?
I mean, it's still happening. It's just a different style of photography.
I see. Okay.
Whereas same thing in the flowers, they may, instead of the bright whites and the pastels and the light pink, blush pink we're all sick of, it's moving into the darker tones, the deep red, the marsala tone. Yeah. Same thing with lip. So like instead of her doing a lighter lip, she's now doing darker lip colors, darker bronzers. So everything's getting a bit moody.
So we could very well see the advent of goth weddings.
Well, there's a market for it. There's
a market for just about anything any bride has ever seen anywhere. Yes. Yeah. So we're going to get a little bit darker with colors and tones and even the photography and linens and everything.
Yeah.
So is this a different? I asked about photojournalists a moment ago, and is this a different kind of a pastel, or is pastels gone?
It's not gone. I mean, you'll still see the pastel colors, especially with spring brides, but the fall tones that have dominated over this past season are still going to stay in style, regardless of it being spring. So they're not gone. They're not gone. It's just change. It'll be a trend. It's a trend. So it'll come in and then it'll go out and then we'll be back to area again.
All things will become new again.
Yes, but right now everyone's vibing off of it. So that's
why I hold on to my bell bottoms. I keep hoping they come back in style.
You got a few days. You got a few days.
And that and leisure suits. Okay, so beyond the darker colors, what other trends can we look forward to?
So as far as the wedding as a whole, everything's turning to be way more about an experience at the wedding. So if you take and I know this isn't new, but if you take the idea of a guest favor, like, oh, what are you going to take out of the wedding?
Right.
And, it used to be silly little things.
Bubbles
and
little Hershey
trinkets.
Kisses.
I mean, things you wouldn't even care to have. Well, guests are saying, or the couples are saying no longer, hey, guests, go home and remember us like that. They want you to remember the experience as it happened at the wedding. So, I mean, the photo booths are the great idea because the experience, while they do have something to take home with them, they still get an experience there. Well, now we have, the video booths.
Oh my goodness,
yeah, they're wonderful. And then we have the memes, the beam booths that you can make your own meme. And
gift booths or gift booths.
Yeah, got that. And then we have, the entertainment itself is being bumped up a notch, like as in fire throwing, aerial talents. We have like live cotton candy stations. I mean, everything's becoming way more interactive to where when you come to a wedding, you should be able to feel that it was an experience, almost like you should have bought a ticket for it, really. I mean, I don't want to take away the element of love because that's the most powerful thing there. But at the same time, when you walk into a wedding, there's an experience to be had, more kind of like an awe factor, really.
And like almost like a show of sorts.
I've seen dancers. I've seen dancers. Yeah. I mean, so in anything cultural too, it's really about empowering. If you have a certain culture that you want to share with your guests, especially if there's a lot of guests there that don't know about it, having something there that's interactive for them to experience with your culture.
Well, and to be honest with you, I like, as an entertainer myself, I like anything that is a live creative entertainment as opposed to, and I'm going to probably get in trouble for saying this, but I mean, uplighting is nice, but it's something anybody can do. Whereas fire breathers,
hey.
I could see my liability insurance climb if I were to, offer that as a part of my service. Here, let me demonstrate for you and be.
Well, and it's really only 10 minutes worth of time, but really, I mean, what are you going to turn around and say? You're like, they had a fire thrower, or they had a characterist, or they had somebody there that was different from what you're used to experiencing.
Well, and I honestly, I remember an article I read it may have been from a wedding on the East Coast where they actually brought in almost like a Cirque du Soleil type show where they came down on the like linen on from the ceiling and they did all this acrobat just like being at a cirque show, and I mean that's fascinating. But so okay, so I don't know if this is I'm going to stray off the path here for a second. So when you think about things like this, though, what's happening to wedding budgets?
Well, I don't think it's impacted. Okay, first of all, those companies aren't charging as much as what you would think. I mean, performers, dancers, those you can go get from any smaller company.
Wow.
So, I mean, they're not tapped into like the wedding world. That's not their first and foremost business. So it's not as expensive. And plus, the guest size continues to lower. So, I mean, that could be a trend in and of itself, that we're not going to invite everybody that has ever been a piece of our life ever. We're going to trim down the guest count so that we can elevate the experience and appropriate the budget as we need to for that. So
I'm seeing more and more of that even in the Kansas City market of weddings are getting smaller. Yeah. Anywhere from 100 to 150 guests, whereas in the past they were anywhere up to like 200 to 350 guests.
And the destination weddings are coming back too. I mean, everybody is trying to create the ultimate experience for their guests while they're in attendance at their wedding. And so, I mean, the smaller, you see the 400s, but much rarely than you used to.
Wow. Okay, so we talked a little bit about colors are getting darker. We talked more about entertainment. What else you got?
Desserts are still really hot. Doing all the different, I mean, it's not just about cake anymore. You can have your cake and you can eat it too. But you better have some macaroons and some pastries and some brownies and a cookie bar or something. The interactive aspect too, like build your own ice cream bar, the waffle bars, anything that's childhood related. So the food that's kicking it back to like, Oreos and milk and the grilled cheese and tomato bisque sliders. So anything that can kick it back to their childhood, that's where it's at.
Really?
Favorite foods. Yeah. I mean, some couples aren't even opting for, like a $35 chicken plate. They'd rather just order in their favorite pizza. And who's to say it's any different? Maybe they have the story behind the pizza company or going on dates there and it's a piece of them. And so, pun intended.
Hey, when my wife and I got married 27 years ago, we did a surprise wedding, and that's exactly what we did. We ordered in pizza. I think the most money we spent was on the wedding cake itself because it was still being ornately. Here we are. We got pepperoni pizza next to this very ornately decorated wedding cake. So let me ask you: is it just me, or I'm noticing that speaking of ornate wedding cakes, that cakes seem to be getting simpler and simpler and simpler? Is that just me, or is that am I just happen to see that, or is that part of a new trend as well?
I think it just travels with the design travels with the elements of design that go through interior design, honestly. So whenever you take a more simplistic cake, let's vary up it with different textures, so it's not about being over the top wow, because if you're going to do a dessert bar too, you can have it as a piece of the spread, but it doesn't have to be everything for everybody. They can pick what they like.
Well, the wedding I did this past weekend, there was like a 6-tier cake, and every tier was a different flavor. So
I mean, you would never want your whole cake to be the whole flavor. No,
come on. I mean,
who does that?
Who does that? I mean,
you better have some different flavors in there.
Are cupcakes still around?
Oh, they're there.
They're there.
They're there.
I don't know.
They're not as popular as they used to be. I mean, pies kind of put it to them, but
I want to see a pie at a wedding.
Pie bars are awesome, and they're really affordable.
I can imagine, like, especially in the summer, having like apple pies or peach pies.
Well, and we are in the heart of outdoor barn weddings right here. So, I mean, get me some cobbler and I'm good. I don't need a piece of wedding cake. I got cobbler.
Okay, so we talk a little bit about trends. Let's talk, if we can, let's talk a little bit about advertising. Again, Bright, it's a wonderful magazine. And here's the cool thing, and I'm not just saying this because because Britney is sitting here, but I honestly believe this magazine, that they have done such a great job with it, both Britney and the previous publisher. They did such a great job with creating a publication that's not like any other publication. I'm not going to mention my name, but it's pretty, and it even for a guy. I mean, a guy I kind of like thumbing through it and kind of looking at the pictures, especially if one of me is in here. But so let's talk a little bit about advertising and catching a bride's eye with ads. What are some of the things that you would say? What are the top 3 things you would suggest as far as when you're looking at a print ad? What is it that you want? Top 3 things that you'd want to consider first
when designing as a
Sure.
I think a good rule of thumb, especially from a publisher standpoint, seeing that I've seen tons of ads,
right,
is that you should be able to take your logo off of your ad or your name, however
right,
you display it, and I should be able to tell you what you do. I should be able to tell that this is an ad for a DJ or an ad for a venue or an ad for a photographer. I should be able to tell that without the business name on there. And I think a lot of people build an ad around something that is not what their primary focus is.
Exactly.
And if I have to try to figure it out, then a bride's going to have to try to figure it out. And so she could just be like, oh, well, that's a really pretty venue, when you were really trying to highlight that you do have, lighting available, or you can do pin spots or something. So you have to be able to tell them what you are without saying this is my name.
So if you're doing uplighting and you're doing monograms as a DJ, you want to make sure that you have a photo of a full dance floor of party guests at the same time that you may be showing off.
Yeah, you can show off multiple pictures.
Yeah.
Multiple pictures is great. So the key is to first find an image from your work that is emotionally pulling, so that you can draw the bride in. So find one image, whether it's on the dance floor when they're dancing, or my favorite father-daughter type of look, that relates to your business but is emotional dynamite. Basically, you're going to pull someone in using that image.
Okay.
So make it a strong image. Make it a representation of your brand. Make sure it's a couple that you enjoyed working with, that you don't mind being effaced somewhat. Pull them in first with that emotional image, and then from there, if you want to do other smaller images of the component pieces of your business, or if you want to list it out, DJ, lighting, photo booth, whatever you do, you can always list it out, but you have to first get her attention using an image that is powerful but also relays what you do as a company.
Right. I think I for years I used I don't know for years, but at least for a year or so, I used a photo of a father-daughter dance where the father had a tear coming down his eye while he was embracing, and you never saw the bride's face, and her face was hidden. All you saw was his face. I mean, you knew she was a bride because she was in white, but yeah, you could see that tear. So you were touching that emotion of, this is something, if this is this emotion of romance and memories and those sort of things are important to you, this is something I can deliver. And you're right, do that without even having to show. That's why I love photographers that there's a couple photographers in Kansas City I absolutely love working with, because every photo they take is a story. I mean, you can feel the emotion. You can look at one of their photos and you can say, I know exactly what was being felt at the moment that photo was taken. Even if I wasn't a part of that wedding, I know what was being felt. Right. Those are the type of photos that you want to incorporate into your advertising. And and will you agree, though? Even for a venue, though, or for a florist, don't you have to be able to touch somehow on that, make an emotional appeal to them, where they go, God, that is so.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same thing. So florists are the same thing as DJ. I mean, you're providing a piece of a day. So, I mean, for a florist, it's a couple maybe doing their first look. And she's got her bouquet off to the side and she's holding it. And the flowers are there and are a piece of the ad. But the emotion fold first draws someone in, and then they see what it's about. So it's like if you take a bride's eye when she's flipping through the magazine, it starts here. And as soon as you have her attention here, then it broadens out, and then it broadens out. So the bigger that you can draw her attention in, the bigger chances you have of her actually evaluating the rest of your ad. And And in terms of photographers, I know you mentioned that you have a few that do great work. I think it's really critical to get to know who the photographers are for that wedding day. Because whenever they put together the smaller albums for the couple, there's usually thousands upon thousands of images that they took. And even though one could be, you know, it's not really a part of their top 100, but it could be the best piece you can have for your marketing.
Absolutely.
So getting to know them to say, hey, do you mind sharing the gallery with me so that I can look at it? I will be sure to credit all of your work, you know, and build that relationship with a photographer. That way, when it comes to the next wedding, you already know each other. You're already friends. Then you know how to kind of.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because I was part of my new business is consulting with DJs on creating customer and client experiences, extraordinary client experiences, and I was talking to a DJ not long ago and reviewing his website and taking a look at it, and almost every photo he had, you could very well tell it was stock photos. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about you should know right off what it was. I mean, on the homepage to have a picture of a bouquet for a DJ, it's like, well, why do you do that? Because are you a florist? Mm-hmm. You know, and on top of that, what kind of emotion are you going to get out of a bouquet looking at it? So it's really important to stay, you know, stock photos are nice. I mean, you can buy them, anybody can buy a stock photo, but here's the danger of buying into stock photos is that you don't know. I know of a couple of companies that use the same stock photos.
Sure. You know,
and I don't know whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
But why? If you want to stand out and be different, then you have your overall appearance, your branding has to be totally different than everybody else out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, well, and to tag off of that, a bride will see right through it.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you must use one, use it until your next event when you can get a real photo. Because same thing goes for outdated photography. If your bride is wearing a dress, and it might be a great emotional picture, but if she's wearing an out-of-date dress or she's carrying an out-of-date bouquet, or the trends are not in with current time, then automatically, even though the emotion's there, your bride will date you with the trends that are within your ad. And so you want to avoid seeming out of date as well.
Well, and I think stock photos don't really convey
they're not there.
Fun. They don't convey. There's really no emotion there because it's a posed shot.
Right.
I mean, and you know, just one other thing on this, and then because I don't want this wasn't really a part of our planned conversation, but you know, if you should be able to develop a relationship with the photographers you're working with. It's that simple. I mean, if you help them, one of the things I do as an example as a DJ when like with the introductions, most DJs when a wedding party is being introduced, as an example, they all go behind a head table, and then when the bride and groom come in, they go behind the head table. Well, all these people that are members of the wedding party are friends of the bride and groom, so I try to stage them so that they're actually in front of the head table and they become a curtain behind the bride and groom, so that when the photographer's taking pictures, he's not getting a shot just of the couple. He's getting a shot of all of their very close friends that are happy for them and smiling and having a great time. So try to think a little bit like a photographer so you can help them as well, and they'll be more than willing to reciprocate along the way. So let's, we still got some more time. So do you have some ads that you can show us? A great example of an ad that, I hope we can make this work
grab a few
with
of them.
Showing them.
So I want to show you this one. This is a great one by a venue, beautiful venue here in Kansas City.
Can you get that up?
Yes, I'll try.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so here's the ad, and on the top you will see, sorry, I'm catching some
That's all right.
There we go. So up top you'll see is like a confetti, which they now have biodegradable confetti, so go for it, out of the ceremony. So first and foremost, at the very top of the ad, you're seeing some emotion, and then when you go down to the bottom, now you see what they're about. So now I'm seeing the inside
shots,
Yep, smaller shots of the venue.
Indoor, outdoor, is that what I'm seeing? Okay.
Yep. So you're seeing that what they do first and foremost is, and
you really feel the emotion of that confetti
I mean,
at the end of the ceremony.
I
mean, it's like, woohoo!
Yeah. Here's one for a DJ. So very similar. this is clearly the toast.
Oh, look at the bride. Look at the bride right there.
Yeah, she's wiping a tear. And that, like I said, that's a perfect example of an image that may or may not be at the top 100 of a photographer's list, but is definitely dynamite for a DJ to use.
Right.
So first and foremost, about the emotion. Secondly, about the experience.
Right. That's so cool.
Then maybe just as one more. So this is a dress one. This is a little bit different because it happens well before the day, but I don't think I've seen a better dress ad out there. This is Savvy Bridal. They're downtown, and every other dress ad I see is usually just a photo of a beautifully designed dress, right?
Right.
Well, now what she's done is the owner there is holding the dress or the veil up for the bride while she's trying on her gown, and you can see the emotion on the bride in the reflection of the mirror. It's dynamite. It's the best ad because she does have dresses, but what she's first most going to give you is an experience.
Right.
By the way, you can find a dress here too. So those are just a few examples to give you some thought on your current advertising.
So the beauty of that is that, again, you're touching upon a couple of emotions. You're catching their eye. It has to be something that's going to stand out. I think for DJs, what the thing to remember is that if you're not asking your brides what they want most out of a wedding, you should be asking, what is it that three adjectives that best describe your wedding? And I can almost guarantee you that the number one thing that 99.999% of brides are going to want is fun. So when you look at an ad, I really like the one with the father of the bride doing the toast. But I could also see a picture next to that, a photo next to that of guests just having fun because they want to know that the dance floor is going to be packed all night and filled. I'm not criticizing that shot because for me that's a great shot. It's like, oh my goodness.
One. There you go.
Yeah.
You want something like that? Here.
Yeah, let me show. I'll do this one. So I mean, a shot like this is what a lot of brides are thinking about. They want to, and it's kind of funny because when I look at this, I'm seeing a bride will typically say she wants her wedding to be fun, she wants it to be memorable. And you look at this and you go, wow, that kind of, you got both of those things going for you right there between that. And I'm guessing those are photo booth shots. Oh yeah,
photo booth and lighting. Well, and it's what's kind of unique to point out on this ad too is that it wasn't swapped around. The bride and groom were not on top and the guests were on bottom. So immediately with this ad, you're prioritizing fun over the bride and groom. And honestly, that's kind of where it's at. I mean, the bride and groom want to have a special day and they want it to be intimate between them, but they're thinking about their guests first and foremost. And so that ad reflects that the guests are first. And by the way, you'll still have a very emotional day. It'll be a connection for you too as well.
How do you feel about, and this kind of just, because one thing I noticed, and how do you feel about, I noticed there's no like coupons or, call now and save $100. How do you as somebody that deals in advertising all the time feel about those kind of calls to action?
We actually strongly advise all of our advertisers to never put pricing on their ads. One reason is because the second you put it on there, then either someone would have been worth paying you, they would have paid you more.
Right, exactly.
And now they're like worried because you're so cheap that they're wondering why. Or B, you're only going to get those people that want to spend the very, very minimum that they can, and they're going to call you asking for a further discount.
Right.
So it's better to sell an experience and to share with a couple what you're worth. And I understand it's a little bit difficult to do that during or in print ad, but it's better to sell the experience than to sell on price.
Right.
The other way you can do that is, I think on all ads, there should be, even if it's just the small icons, all social icons that you're available on. Not because on a printed issue that can they click on something and go straight towards you, but it gives them the ability to say, oh, I'm looking at this DJ's ad. Oh, look, he's on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and look him up. And so it invites them. It's an open invitation for them to go to your social media where you can be more personal. And now they can kind of get a feel for you, feel for your company and what kind of work you do. So.
Okay. So just out of curiosity, what have you found? And I know I'm kind of going back on your experience as a wedding planner because And that's what I remember you most for. But as a wedding planner, what is the best way to what do you think is the best way for a bride to contact you? In other words, it's a really awkward way of asking the question. Do you want to try to get a bride into to contact you by email so that you can try to set up an appointment? Would you rather have them call you? How does today's millennial bride? How do you think today's millennial bride wants to communicate? There, maybe I got the question out.
Okay, well, she's going to want to email you. She's going to want to text you is what seems to be the best way. I consider if a bride is calling me, she's just way more serious.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. If you're just shopping me, then you're emailing me. You're saying, hey, how much? Are you free on my date? And that's basically the short of it until I reply back and get put back into the feed of everybody else. But if somebody calls, I think you're way more serious than emailing me. And I feel like I should reply accordingly. So if someone calls me and leaves me a voicemail saying, hi, I'm looking at your services for this and this date, I'm calling you back like that because you're already way more serious because you're going the extra mile to call me instead of just tapping out an email on your phone and sending it over or going through like an auto request.
So do you think millennial brides want to be sold to any different? Forget about communication. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So we can all agree. I'll even agree that millennial brides are into email and mainly texting. But do you think millennial brides want to be sold to any differently than any other generation of brides? Okay. Sure. And how?
And I think it comes down to a lot of small businesses, and I think that most of the wedding industry is built on small business. Yeah, family, shop local kind of stuff. And of course, I think that whenever a bride buys, she's buying into you. And so whenever it's almost like the commitment to Apple, like, do I need every Apple product out of the market? No, I don't. But I trust
that think they do. Yes.
Yes, but when they release something, I'm like, well, I better go check it out and better see if I'm going to get one because I have the loyalty power to Apple. Same thing, and it's more. It doesn't have to do with price. It's about the ability to connect as friends, and I think that that's where I found the most of my clients. I'm like, I could probably hang out with you even, I could probably be your friend. Like, I'm genuinely interested in your life and how it goes from here. And I hope I can still find out about you.
Right.
And I think that they're the same way back, or I like to think they are. So it's more of they're buying into a cause. They're buying local. I don't know how it is in every city, but Kansas City is very strong on buying local and supporting local. And that is definitely transparent also in the wedding industry.
Well, I think even with Apple, you're buying, and this is kind of where even buying a lot of Apple product, you're buying into the experience. Do you really need a $500 phone to make phone calls? No, you're buying a $500 phone because it makes you feel important. It makes you feel valued. It makes you feel like you have prestige. Yeah. I own this phone. Yes. That's why people stand in line outside the door. So, but when you think about that experience, you're also thinking about the emotional appeal of it. That, do people like you? Do they feel they can trust you? Do they feel that you have their best interests in heart?
Well, and I feel like a lot of that is just being transparent with your couple.
Right.
I'm never afraid to ask. Like, if there's a couple that I'm sitting across the table from and I'm like going bonkers in my head thinking this is going to be the coolest wedding. I can't wait to work with, I wouldn't, mess up anything. I won't mess it up.
Right.
And trust me, I'll handle it for you. And they have an awesome line of vendors lined up. I am not afraid to sit there and say, I really want to work with you. And I would be over the moon, and no one's going to work harder for you than me. And I'm not afraid to say that because that's pretty much what they're wanting to hear, and
yeah, I agree. I think that
transparency is brilliance when it comes to talking frankly about it's an emotional experience. Why aren't you being emotional back?
Right, exactly. And I think that, I want to work for people, as I'm sure you do, and everybody should. If you want to work for people who are going to allow you to do your best work. You don't want to work for somebody that just because they have a checkbook. I've heard DJs before say, well, I will work for anybody with a checkbook or anybody that can pay my fee. Why? Why would you do that to yourself? I mean, I would much rather work for somebody that is as happy about me working for them as I am about working with them. Something like that. But I want everybody happy in the end. And the only way that's going to happen is if you have a certain amount of trust built up and if there is that relationship there and that emotion. And here's the beauty of something like that, and I'm sure you discovered it as well, is that, in with that kind of a relationship, if something does happen, God forbid, something, a mistake should occur, it's a lot easier for people to get over something like that with a friend than it is for somebody that you've just turned it into a transactional relationship instead of an emotional relationship.
Certainly.
So,
and they just become way more understanding if things are completely out of control. I mean, I've had a bride laugh stuff off before because she knew everything was planned to a T, but what had came up was completely out of my control. I was like, and she's like, that's fine. I'm good, So, yeah, and that type of relationship too is just opens a floodgate for referrals.
Right.
Floodgate.
Yeah, it turns satisfied customers into raving fans. Yeah, absolutely.
They become your best mouthpiece.
Yeah, so let me tell you about my friend Brittany rather than my wedding planner Brittany or my DJ Ron or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to be best friends with them, but it's just about connecting and about, I mean, these are people living their normal lives. I mean, yes, they're your clients, but they're people. They're living normal lives, and this is just a happy moment in their life that you are being, given the opportunity to be a part of. And so you should be honored and blessed that they've considered you. Right. And you should be willing to serve them accordingly. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so let's quick recap here of what we've talked about a little bit. Ooh, my producer, John, is with Disc Jockey News, going to be thrilled because, John, guess what? I'm going to be on time this week. He's going to be like, woohoo. Okay, so quick review kind of what we talked about. So as far as trends are concerned, it's going to get moody. Things are going to get moody. It's going to get darker, so to speak, as far as colors and tones. And okay. And then the more entertainment. So DJs, go out and buy a sword for swallowing or flames that you can eat. That would be, or learn how to come down off the ceiling on a rope. And then desserts. Desserts are still a big hit with the pies. Maybe a coming thing, which I'm absolutely all about. But I wonder if we can start asking for certain pies, like a chocolate pie would be good too. Yeah, I've seen it. I like the chocolate pies. Yeah. Advertising, we talked a little bit about that, of actually being able to, whatever the ad is that you come up with, if you took the logo off of it, whoever's looking at that ad should be able to know just by looking at that ad exactly what it is that you do. And they should be able to know that by the emotion that you're trying to convey, whether it's a full dance floor of people or whether it is showing an emotion of a father doing a toast and the bride shedding a tear, or the one I was talking about with the father of the bride with a tear in his eye, emotionally engaged with his daughter on the dance floor for a father-daughter dance. And then we talked a little bit about being able to sell to a bride, so to speak. I mean, that seems like a topic that gets hit on a lot, selling to brides. But I just some of the basics that we kind of covered are we know nowadays millennial brides is nothing new. Love to communicate through text. Where I kind of disagree with most wedding professionals is that I think most brides, whether they're millennial or Gen X or Gen Y or whatever they may be, whatever generation they come from, they still just want to feel loved. They want to feel respected and they want to feel valued and special. And I don't care if they're millennial or not. No. And part of it is, and again, part of that is the experience that the customer experience begins in the sales process, how you make that customer feel. Do they feel valued, special, important, as though the experience has been designed solely with them in mind? So, gosh, man, we covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time, We did.
And even with my awkward question a little while ago, we'll cut that in post-op maybe, or post-production. God, I can't even do that right. So anything else, any closing comments you'd like to share with us before we go away?
I don't think that's
You don't
it.
have anything?
No.
I can't.
Best of luck to everybody.
Yes, I agree.
Just be genuine.
This has been my friend, or this is still my friend. This is my friend Britney Beach-Jones. She is the publisher and owner of EA Bride in Kansas City. And if you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me at ron@discjockeynews.com. If you have questions for Britney, if anybody had a question for you, how would they contact you?
Just Britney at eabride.com.
Britney, Britney,
Yes.
at eabride.com. You don't work for Disc Jockey News. So thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to seeing you again at the end of the month, actually on the 27th of March again, 8 o'clock right here. See you next time, all.
Bye.
Bye.